Welcome to I'mEnough.co, Barry, and it's lovely to have you on our chat today. For those that don't know Barry Auchettl is a renowned international speaker. He is the creator of a game called Conversation, which is a very inspirational game to play whether at business or with your kids. He's a radio host and he does so many more things than that. So, Barry, I wonder if you'd be able to introduce yourself to those listening to this podcast.
Thanks, Cathy. Look, I do a number of things, and I actually refer to myself as a life vision mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And really my role these days is about supporting people on their path in whatever way that is. So some of that is through the communication, through the board game conversations that you mentioned, and that helps people. Some of that is through helping people with their physical eyesight to help them see better. And then the work that I'm doing lately, it's about how they're seeing within, and that's that life mentoring of helping people how they see within. And part of that is a 6-month program that I take people on as a journey to really expand their frequency and their vibration in life.
Awesome. But today we're really going to focus on those younger ones around us. And
Sure.
our topic for today is owning our emotions.
Yeah.
What do you understand by that, Barry?
Well, see, emotions are a really interesting thing because when I was a teenager, going back the older, when I was a kid sort of stuff, but, emotions weren't something that was readily available to me. And I can remember coming home and opening the door, and if I felt too happy, I was being a bit of a smart aleck. If I was too sad, I was generally told to toughen up and be okay. And so the response that I had as a child was really okay meant had to stay within these realms of emotion, which was really neutral. Anything too much or too little wasn't really acceptable. And I had to learn that there is a vast range of emotions, which is really an indicator of how I'm feeling. Am I really happy in life? And so one of the things I did is went through this whole process of looking at what are the emotions and making it okay for me to have the whole range of emotions. And to help people, what I do is there are 4 basic emotions I always start with, because sometimes if I go up to people and say, how are you feeling? And you've never really thought about your own emotions. It's a little bit hard, isn't it? To how am I feel? I don't know how I'm feeling. Like I'm not too sure. So I'd like to offer people 4 words, and the 4 words are happy, sad, angry, scared. I'll say those again: happy, sad, angry, scared. And so if I'm in a space, even now, I'm not sure how I'm feeling right now, I'll go, okay, is it towards the happy? Am I angry or a bit sad or a bit scared? And it sort of gives me a starting point to what's happening in my life.
And perhaps that could take us straight into the digital world, because that's really the forum that we're focusing on, is that maybe those are the exact questions you can ask when you receive something that's unprompted or something that rocks your emotions. Would that be a fair question to go, is the receiver in a point of being happy, sad, angry, or scared? And then through that, be able to define how you respond to it.
That's right, because one of the things I often do is I have a situation, if I react to something, I'm really angry. The classic one is someone sent me an email once and they owed me, it was something like 2,154. It was that detailed amount that they owed me. And it had 2,154 not going to do it. And I was like, oh, but you owe me this money. It's not fair. And I was like really angry about it. And I have a policy that if I'm angry, I don't reply to an email for 24 hours. Like it's just a policy. If I'm reacting to it, I don't reply to an email. And I went back to the email the next day, and what they talked about was they had to travel 2,154 kilometres. It wasn't even about the money, but I saw the number and I thought it was about what they owe me, and they said they weren't going to travel that far. And it wasn't even about the issue, and it was a great one for me to recognise that sometimes my emotions can throw me out from what's really going on.
And something that I've spoken to my children about is that if they receive something, or whatever the giver is, so one of my children actually has an issue at the moment where there's somebody with huge anger issues within the class environment, and my encouragement to my children is to stand back from that, because if you stand back from that and you question what's actually going on in that other person's life, it places another perspective. So you're right, that 24-hour period, stand back, assess, look in, and then make a decision as to how you react.
Sure.
Or
And
not.
anger is a really good one that you've mentioned, because underneath anger, always to me, is another core emotion. It might be something that we're feeling hurt or we're feeling sad,
Mm-hmm.
that the anger is just on top of it. And I always say, let's have a look at what's underneath the anger.
Mm.
And some people say to me, is anger any good? Like, is it okay to be angry? And the simple answer is yes. Like, all emotions are okay. It's that simple.
Any Italian? Yes.
What was that, sorry?
I said, speak to any passionate Italian.
Exactly. They'll be very passionate and they'll be using their hands and all this sort of stuff. And I think it's important to really own that if we're angry, it's okay. And sometimes it actually helps us. Like, if we're feeling a bit depressed, getting a little bit angry could get us moving. It could be like, look, I need to say something. I need to do some action.
Mm.
The other side to it is, if we're feeling really good, we don't want to always have to use anger to get moving. So sometimes, it may not be the best choice, but there may be other options, and at least look at what it is. But I never see any emotion as being a bad emotion. They're just simply emotions.
But Barry, how do you feel when you're on the receiving end of that emotional outburst? So what would
Sure.
your tips be to somebody who is able to own their own emotions, but when they're on the receiving end of an outburst of emotions from somebody else, whether it be from a digital connection, or it's a Facebook post that the person's put out there with their name associated with it, what would your thoughts be around that?
Okay, great question. And the first thing it gets, we still get a little bit of oh, I don't like this, like that still happens, even if people do to me. So the first thing I always take on is, don't take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually not about you. So to be able to step back from a little bit and go, okay, this is actually not about me. What is really going on here? Now that takes a bit of thought, rather than go, oh, they're attacking me, I'm going to get defensive. So to be able to step back and go, okay, what's going on here? And to even be so bold to have some empathy for the other person. What's really going on for them?
Mm.
Because what's underneath that for them? So underneath that anger might be that they might be frustrated in their own life, or other things are happening in their own life. And so I've found that the best thing that I can do when it comes to people getting angry is to have compassion for that person. And to say, look, I even name it. Look, I can hear that you're really angry at the moment. Can we look at this? Or do you want to have some time out and we'll talk about it later? And that's okay as well. You don't have to resolve the issue then and then. It could be, look, let's wait a half an hour and then let's come back and see what's really going on underneath that.
But I would say that, those are all really excellent tips. But I'm also thinking about a person listening to this and thinking, yeah, but they've shared this, and now all 1,000 of their followers, potentially, because we always think bigger numbers than really, have seen it, and they're going to think XYZ of me. And so the receiver will probably be going through a series of what ifs in the future could happen because of what has been said, and what impact can that have on my existence. Do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, look, I do. Look, number one, it is difficult. It's a difficult process, and no one likes to be criticised, especially if we think we've been criticised unfairly. But to have that equal force and to go back and to make another comment back at that person only escalates it. And your Facebook page, for example, if I'm an employer and I actually employ people, the first thing I'm going to do is look at people's Facebook page to see the sorts of comments that they make. And so it becomes a public record that anyone can have a look at it and say, is this the sort of person that you are? And so the easiest thing I do, occasionally someone will put something up on my Facebook page that just isn't true. And there's a great button called delete. So we actually have the option of deleting that button and at least minimizing the damage that it can cause. And it is actually okay to block those people, but we don't have to deal with people who are coming from that space.
And I think that's very true, Barry, because as you know, in another part of my world, that's what I deal with, working with businesses. And yes, businesses don't have an emotive core to them, but people with emotion can create huge amounts of havoc in businesses' lives. And you're right, it's about managing and strategizing around what you need to do to hold down your own, to hold down your position, and then to mitigate what is being said in a positive way. So not to be reactive, because often that's something I find with clients is they want to go out and they want to react straight away. And it's often myself and my team that pull back and we go, let's rather evaluate what is actually behind that. What is our position? How do we need to think about it? So I think what you've covered is some very powerful steps to own the emotions, take a step back, take a breath, think about the response, and then maybe take a step forward. But don't own what's coming your way. And I think the other element is don't actually absorb the fear. Don't think about what will happen tomorrow because of it, because that's only going to escalate the anxiety in you.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll delete the person. I may even put a comment, something that says, I'm sorry if this has offended anyone. I am really trying to make this a positive site. So I have a 100% positive only comments on my site. So I never post anything negative on my site or anyone else. And I, really don't expect people to put negative. And they can say what they want to say, but there's different ways of saying that. So, very important process. I guess the other thing I just want to say to that is make sure you don't put anything negative on anyone else's site as well, because that creates that sort of you back coming forth sort of stuff. And, that doesn't serve anyone. And even if, if you're broken up with your boyfriend or your girlfriend and you want to tell the world that, you're not happy with them, that's the best time not to do anything. Just close your computer down for a few days and just, see how you're feeling. And one of the things I want to finish up with is we've talked about happy, sad, angry, scared. A great way in a process is every day just ask yourself a really simple question is, how am I feeling right now? So whenever something is happening and you get an email like that, or something happens at school, or if you're working and you get triggered, it's like, well, how am I feeling right now? I might be angry. I might be a bit scared that, this is going to come back to me, or I might be, okay about it. I might be, well, actually, it doesn't really affect me. It's not who I am. And at least become aware of those emotional feelings that you have are actually signposts to where you're going and how well you're developing. So they do support me in working out how I am right now anyway, and where I'm moving to. So someone asked me to go to a weekend in 2 weekends' time, and they changed the whole situation. Initially, they wanted me to work there, and then they just wanted me to pay to go there to be an attendant. And it just didn't feel right. Like I felt in it. I thought, oh, it just doesn't feel really comfortable. And a great response for people, some people might be worried about saying no. One of the great statements I often use is, this doesn't feel right for me. And it's a really hard one of us. People then go, well, actually it should. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. And you're entitled to have those feelings. So, it's okay to say no, I guess, in that sense.
And I think I might have used it already in some of the earlier things, but it was a eureka moment in my life when I realized that no is a complete sentence. No.
Yes.
I don't need to go because I feel this, or because it's just no. I don't, it's not. It's no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good word to practice, and I still have people practicing that word.
Barry, once again, it's been awesome having you on the podcast. I think you've shared some brilliant insights. I think those 4 elements of emotions, asking about those, questioning those, taking the break, not reacting, owning the emotion at that point in time, and giving reflection back to where that emotion's coming from. So always insightful, always inspiring. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast. And I know you're going to be joining us in another series at a future point in time. So thank you once again.
Okay, thanks, Cathy. Bye, everyone.